like and subscribe. To those who are the eldest daughters of their homes, how did you find the courage to be independent? It wasn't a choice. If you are expected to be a caretaker for your younger siblings from an early age on and basically function as another parent, you have no choice but to figure it out. I read the question and came here to say this. I was 8 when I was told I was responsible for my own laundry. 9 when cleaning my room was entirely my own job, vacuuming, dusting, washing the windows. 10 when I had to clean the bathroom. My brother was never asked to do his own laundry, clean his room or clean the bathroom. The rule my parents had was if we are not there, we are not paying for it. When I wanted to socialize with my friends, I had to pay for it. If I wanted to buy a lunch at school instead of making my own at home, I had to pay for it. I started babysitting at 11 and got my first job at 14. I worked full-time hours during the summer and 25 hours a week during the school year. My brother's social activities were always funded by my parents. My mother used to pack him a lunch at home and give him money for the cafeteria. He never gave her change back. She never asked for it. He didn't get a job until he was 18. I feel like I've been independent, in some forms, since I was a child. Pretty sure all eldest children feel this comment. Which is sad. Yep. My parents weren't bad people, but I was absolutely left to fend for myself, while they focused on my younger sister. She actually moved out before me, because they'd given her the financial support to do so. I think Op's intention was to ask how you separated yourself from your family and the responsibility of being the eldest, and went on to live your own life. Personally, I found this very emotionally difficult and still feel guilty for leaving my younger sisters behind, especially with our large age gap, where I was more of a second mom than a sister. Having divorced parents was an even harder push into this direction. I am not sure what that means. I am the eldest daughter of 3. I don't feel like it took any more courage for me to move out of home than it did my siblings. I did it first, obviously, because I am oldest, but it was not a huge difficult thing. As the oldest, I felt like I was leaving my siblings to fend for themselves, which is where my perception of Op's question led, if that makes sense. I too was confused about the question. I'm the eldest with my sister, being 12 years younger than me. My mom was always very independent, and she taught me to be the same. I naturally was ready to leave the house and start my own path after high school. I never felt pressured or regret for doing so either. But reading through the comments makes me feel like my experience was very unique. Same. Oldest of 3. I have 1 brother and 1 sister. I just left, no issues. It obviously helped that my parents paid for university and accommodation in a different city than my hometown. When I finished uni, I found a job and they stopped sending money. It was a smooth change. They did the same for my siblings. It was not more difficult for them either. Wish that were true. I'm the youngest and had to move out first. I'm number 4 in a sibship of 11 children. I'm the oldest girl, and I have 1 sister who is 12 years younger than me. I had a very difficult time being independent. Though I was the caretaker of the family, I was also very codependent. I was shy and fearful of the world. One thing, though, is that I had learned to take care of myself, and to never depend on anyone. I left home at 17 due to my father's abuse, and moved in with my abusive boyfriend. I was still in high school, but did continue on to graduate. About 10 years later, something just happened. I don't know the exact circumstances, but I found myself feeling stronger. I enrolled for college, got a 2-year degree, and started a good job. I didn't end there. I went on a few years later, and got a bachelor's degree. Now, nothing holds me back. I have my own company, and live in Europe. This is exactly how I feel. I'm now 28, and I just moved out of my parental's house for less than a year. I still have a long way to go, but at least, my codependency has now been lessened by a lured. Holy crow, well done Carrot. You did awesome, congrats. I was a curious kid, and with curiosity came knowledge. With knowledge came courage, and with courage came independence. The other siblings followed me as a role model. I'm a thinker and a learner. I was constantly questioning things and consuming knowledge. I knew I wanted more than the small town and the people I grew up with. It was honestly an easy choice to leave and become independent. Was it scary in the moment? Sure. Maybe I'd fail, maybe things wouldn't go my way. But maybe they would. And in fact they did. My brother was able to watch me leave home and thrive, and I'd like to think that encouraged him to do the same and pursue what he wanted. Like another commenter said, it wasn't a choice. Both my parents worked, but still thought it would be best to homeschool, so most days it was me and my younger sibling home alone. You just learn to be self-sufficient. One thing that did help me be confident in separating myself from my family though was therapy. Therapy helped me realize what was and what wasn't normal or okay in my family dynamics, and how to make it affect me less when I was living at home. Having an amazing partner who is my best friend and who helped me leave the nest was also great, because I moved out way sooner than I would have without him. If this is something you're needing help with, I highly recommend looking into therapy or confiding in close friends who'll be understanding. It was not a choice. My younger brother has severe disabilities, and I was required to learn to be independent, autonomous, and to figure things out a bit earlier than others. While it has served me well in many ways, it makes me very hesitant to depend on others. This was my experience as well. Severely disabled brother, I was a caretaker to him, and my mom to some degree, but also very much alone to figure out stuff out. I left home at 17, because I was independent. There was a lot of pressure for me to stay, but I knew it was toxic. I wasn't going to continue to light myself on fire to keep the family warm. I'd paid my dues. So I've muddled my way through. I echo others insofar as recommending therapy. It's helped me immensely in working through my trauma and learning to trust myself and others. This was also my experience, but I also fell into the role of my sister's caretaker at a very young age. I have a hunch you have been raised, like so many of us, to believe that you couldn't take care of yourself if you moved out. That is bollocks. We've been raised to bear responsibility for others. It is actually a relief when you move out and only have to take care of yourself. As long as you've got a job/source of income, it is actually very easy to only take care of yourself. Thank you for this. I am currently trying to move out because I have had enough of my mom and her tendency to be so negative towards me, and I'm scared of not being able to live on my own because of financial difficulties. I did not have a choice, so I chose spite. Wow, this struck me. My path summed up in 9 words. Wow, this struck me. My path summed up in 9 words. I had no other choice. I was in charge of all of the household chores, including the cooking and cleaning, and taking care of my siblings. Being independent and capable were just standard requirements of me from childhood. I didn't find it difficult to become independent as an adult, as I had been expected to be that way since being a child. Did you feel guilty about leaving at all? This is how I read Op's question, at least, because I was also capable living as an independent adult, but my sisters are 10 years younger than me, and they felt very hurt by me moving out, and then even moving to another country. I didn't find the courage to be independent. I was raised to be independent. Same. My dad always told my brother and I how smart and capable we were, which is why he had such high expectations for us. Both he and my mom expected us to have input into decisions that impacted us, like where to go to high school and what extracurriculars we were interested in, and maintain our commitments, time management for studying and practices. Moving out and making my own decisions about life just came naturally after that. I agree that it's more a question of what you are taught. But it is interesting that so many commenters see independence as taking care of others. Same. My dad always told my brother and I how smart and capable we were, which is why he had such high expectations for us. Both he and my mom expected us to have input into decisions that impacted us, like where to go to high school and what extracurriculars we were interested in, and maintain our commitments, time management for studying and practices. Moving out and making my own decisions about life just came naturally after that. Same. My dad always told my brother and I how smart and capable we were, which is why he had such high expectations for us. Both he and my mom expected us to have input into decisions that impacted us, like where to go to high school and what extracurriculars we were interested in, and maintain our commitments, time management for studying and practices. Moving out and making my own decisions about life just came naturally after that. My parents didn't really want me to move out, but I wanted to. I don't have a big problem with my parents, but I felt like I could never make my own choices if I didn't move out. My parents' financial situation is not good enough to support me, but in Germany you can get financial support if you are a student. Added to that, I've been taking care of a lot of things myself since I was younger because my parents didn't want to and said I'm old enough to do it myself. I'm not 100% independent, but I try my best to. Similar story for me. My parents are European immigrants and their expectation was for me to live with them the rest of their lives and take care of them as they age. Even if I got married, which they never encouraged, because then it would mean I would not care as much about them. The expectation was that I would purchase a multi-family home for us to live in. Growing up in America, I wanted none of that. I wanted to get away from them and the region I was raised in. I wanted to be on my own and independent. I finally got the courage to move out at 27 after being in an abusive relationship that made me realize I was never going to be happy if I lived my life the way others wanted me to live it. My parents were furious, but it was the best thing I could have done for myself and our relationship. I live pretty far from them now, and they still want me to move back, but the distance is the only thing that keeps me from having an anxiety attack thinking about how they still expect me to give up my life to take care of them one day. Not sure what you mean by this. I was frequently left to my own devices for set periods of time. I knew when adults would return and did what I wanted, but stayed out of trouble. My parents were probably what would today be called free range, although in comparison to my peers mine were strict. Probably if you felt guilty/responsible for your younger siblings and leaving them behind. At least that's how I read it, and what I can relate to. I'm not sure how being the eldest daughter has anything to do with it, but my over-controlling father kind of just motivated me to do TFO. First thing was when he kept threatening to call the police and report me missing if I didn't answer my phone. We talked and I said, you are not authorized ever to report me missing just because I don't call you back fast enough. His response, while I pay for your cell phone and phone plan, you will answer my phone calls or you won't have a phone anymore. So the next day I went to Walmart, got me a $30 phone and cheapest phone plan available. Called my dad and asked him when he wanted his phone back. Just kind of went from there. When he threatened to take away my car, I bought my own car. When he threatened to move me out of my dorm and move me back home, I got my own place. Threats, removal of threats. I had to work full time throughout college to make this happen, and college took me a few years longer as a result, but it worked out. I finished college and got completely separate from him. We are now no contact. Edit. Oh, and car insurance on my old car was #2. He took me aside one day and demanded to know what tickets I had gotten that I didn't tell him about. I told him I hadn't got many. He said, bull. My insurance is higher than the rest of the families, and I'm like, Dad, I'm 19, of course it is. He said he's going to run a driver's check on me to see what tickets I got, and he needs my license number. I was just like, oh, don't worry about it actually, I'll just get my own insurance and get out of your hair. OFC, that proved his point that I did, in fact, have tickets that he didn't know about. I didn't. I don't think I really had any choice. I was kind of forced into doing things myself and alone. It was a little scary to do firsts before my sister, but eventually I got over it. Like first boyfriend, first period, etc. I just do what's best for myself now, and it's been fine. Lol, cute to assume you old know it have to be. especially being the oldest. You always get stuck babysitting or being blamed. IDK about other cultures, but Hispanics usually think their girls are grown by 13. I guess that is why the boys get away with their bull. I read it more of how do you separate yourself from these responsibilities and live your life without feeling guilty for abandoning your family and the younger siblings you were responsible for. My extreme independence is a trauma response. DDEUREURE. Same. I didn't not have it. My parents are abusive assholes, so I've been independent for a long time. Seriously, I was like 8 years old when I figured it out. Did you feel bad about leaving your siblings behind in that situation? Often older siblings in these situations take over the role of parenting. That's how I read the ops question. That she feels responsible to stay and keep being a caretaker, a role model instead of moving out and living her own life. So our eldest daughter's supposed to have a hard time being independent? Or a vertical bar? I am confused by this question. For me, independence is a natural thing for all adults. Who wants to be dependent? Personally, I felt guilty leaving my younger sisters behind because I felt responsible for them. It almost felt like I was a parent skipping out on their kids to party and start a second family in another country. At least from their reaction. They were very upset that I left. That's what I'm saying. It was never a decision. I just was/am an independent person. So were/are my brothers. We all left home at appropriate times and started our lives. Dirtbag parents who lean too hard on their, usually female, kids to take care of the household will often foster a sense of dependency, so they never lose control of their house elf/passive income stream/slave. It usually takes the form of comments starting at a very young age, like you have no common sense, you'd be lost on your own, only we really know you/love you/will put up with you. Combine that with loading them up with so much responsibility that they don't have time to think, and you can cripple a young woman with guilt, doubt, and low self-esteem. And then boom, you don't have to do your own laundry. Some people are raised to be dependent or both dependent and codependent. The real malicious strain of, we are going to use you as a carriage driver, but undermine your self-esteem so severely that you're scared to leave. I was always independent. You have to be as the oldest. You have to learn how to take care of all your other siblings, and you have to deal with being the one your parents mess up with. You just want to be on your own. It is how it's always been. I, 25F, think that it takes a long time. For the first 24 years of my life, I felt like my entire loyalty in life had to be to my family. I felt like I had to plan everything, make sure we all got together, remember birthdays, and protect my siblings. We had a traumatic childhood emotionally, and I had to become a protector. It was not until the last year that I could really step away from this role and decide to start working on myself and maturing emotionally. The biggest issue with protecting and caring for younger siblings is lack of childhood for yourself. That is why, in the last year, our focus is on having fun and building my life. I will say though, the oldest sibling role never truly goes away. Your family will always expect more. This, 100%. I never felt like I got to be a child. I was always the responsible one, and I only broke free of that role around a year ago. It is such hard work, constantly battling the guilt you feel when you choose yourself. But it is so worth it in the end. I am proud of us, username twin. Revolting. Assertiveness. And therapy. But we are still not on mutual ground. But there is only so much I can do for my well-being. My parents booted my older sister out at 17 because she was pregnant, and I left at 19 because the relationship with my mum was unbearable. My dad left when I was 11. I come from a respectable working class background. There was no alcohol, drugs, or abuse, but my mum had mental health issues, and I had serious depression and undiagnosed that, so it was just an impossible situation. You just do what you have to do. I grew up with a selfish, controlling father, and at some point I just realized nobody could force me to do anything I didn't want to do. I rebelled all I could, spent as much time as possible at friends' and boyfriends' houses, and then went off to university. My siblings definitely got an easier ride, because I'd already broken my parents down, and shown them that they equally didn't need to do whatever they were told. There wasn't another option. My little brother, 2 years younger, is special needs with challenges from cerebral palsy, and my dad wasn't in the picture. Mom worked 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. It was up to me to make sure my brother was dropped off / picked up at school, did his homework, wore clean clothes, and not the same ones from the day before, was fed, and went to bed on time. I think a lot of oldest children, especially daughters, have this burden thrust upon them, sometimes out of necessity, as was my case, and sometimes because of bad parenting, and I've noticed somewhat of a correlation between this role and being gifted or talented in other areas. For me, this was music. This leads to a ton of anxiety and a drive for perfection, because you learn that the more in control you are, the better your situation tends to be. I think op means how did you become independent from this responsibility that was thrust onto you? I was raised to be independent. Vertical bar. It was my job to care for my sister, who was 5 years younger, cook for my stepfather, and when he decided to take in his daughter's child, when I was 14, it was my job to care for him as well. I did not get a choice. If I ever asked for help from my mother, I was met with, "I am not raising helpless children. You can do it for yourself." Imagine the shocked Pikachu faces when I moved out at 16. Yeah, I read op's question to be referring to the last part. Like, how did you build up the courage to just up and leave at 16, leaving behind all the responsibilities at home, including any younger kids you were responsible for? Personally, I felt guilty after I saw how sad my sisters were when I left, like a parent skipping out of their kids to have fun and live my own life. I am not sure birth order is a factor here as much as how you were parented. All 3 of the kids in my family had moved out by age 20 with minimal parental support. We all paid our own rent and most expenses immediately, and we all started working outside the home at age 50. Our parents are deeply neglectful and self-involved, so we had to just do what we had to do to survive. I think op is talking more about how you emotionally detach yourself from the role of third parent, caregiver / helper in your family. It will definitely depend on the individual family, and also the age gap of siblings, but in cases, for example, where only the oldest can work and has to take care of their younger siblings, they often feel responsible and guilty for choosing to leave them behind and live their own life. Eldest girl of 4 siblings. Myself and brother, then 2 much younger sisters. It was like 2 generations. It was easy to be independent as all things were directed towards my brother, the eldest and only son. If I wanted something, I had to get it myself. In retrospect, my parents helped the one that needed help. I left home at 17 and returned to the US to attend university to a city I had never been. All family remained overseas, so I was the only one in the US. Extended family in Scotland and Canada. I'm oldest of 5. I was always responsible for my younger siblings. Starting from when I was around 8 or 9, my mom would leave me in charge. When I was 11, she went back to work, and I became primary caregiver until there was an emergency and child services got involved. Then we had a sitter until I turned 12, so for a few months. Then back to being the caregiver. My mother had a lot of mental problems, and we had a considerable amount of friction when I was an older teen. It resulted in me leaving home when I was 18 over 19. My mother took the position that I abandoned the family, and I became the family villain after that. I was brave, but I did not really have a choice to be independent that young. There was no emotional or financial support to be had. I finally finished college at 28, when I already had a young child and a failed marriage. I never had any choice but to be brave and strong if I wanted to survive and thrive for my kid. You just do what you have to, you know? I didn't have a choice. I had to watch my siblings often. They are over 5 years younger than I am. I couldn't rely on either of my parents or my step-parent. I didn't feel that I had anyone to unconditionally support me, so I did it myself. I still feel this way sometimes. I relate to that, and I read Op's question to refer to that actually, like how do you as the oldest leave and live your own life while leaving your family responsibilities behind, including your underage siblings. Being kicked out at 17 sure helped. If college is an option, it is a pretty easy way to ease into it. THIS carrot. I used education as my escape from home. I was so mature for my age. I grew up in a toxic household, being parents to my parents from the age of 6. When I got old enough to realize how ed up that really was, I got the F out of there. My parents moved to Sweden when I was 18. I stayed in Germany. I got my bitter 13 days before my 18th birthday. To put it simply, I had a breakdown in my 20s. It was mild, but it was definitely life-changing. Then my mother died 4 days before my 30th birthday. It was not easy. Being from an immigrant household, I had to fight for my independence at every step. I felt bad for leaving my siblings in a household that I knew was not bringing the best out of them. But I also knew that I had to leave to show them that it is possible to leave of our own will. So if you're ever having guilt over wanting independence, remember that you're also setting an example for your siblings. They need to know that independence is possible, that it is healthy and possible. For me, this is something I'm actively working on in therapy. I had to take on the responsibility of taking care of my siblings when I was extremely young, 5-6, and still am to some extent 20 years later. It's been an extremely difficult process because I'd feel guilty when wanting to do a NYTHING for myself. What has helped me is a combination of 1. Walking through my hesitance, e.g. why don't I want to go to the bakery and treat myself to a cake that I've been eyeing for the last 4 weeks? Why do I feel guilty spending money on this new hobby? And if I don't do it now, when will I do it? The latter has helped me more than I care to admit. But like my therapist says, sometimes you just need to just kick yourself in the butt and do the things that make you uncomfortable before you can feel better. My parents divorced when I was 5. I have one younger sister, were too busy living their lives, so I just basically grew up too soon. My dad was off doing his thing with his girlfriends and their kids, and eventually his wife, who didn't like me, still doesn't, but it became a mutual thing very soon. My mom was broken from the divorce, left alone with a house to pay, and 2 daughters, so she didn't have time to really be there, and she never was a very emotionally available person, so I did my thing, and rebelled against everything. Turned out fine, after a lot of therapy and self-care stuff. I always had the courage. I think I just wanted to get out as soon as possible to leave the stressy circumstances. I was forced to. My mother's abuse only got worse, and she got physical with me for the first time in 7 years. Then she got in my face and tried to get me to hit her back. I told her no. I chose to leave because I was tired of her. I did not make the choice to. I was forced into mothering my 3 siblings, and when sexually assaulted by my stepdad, promptly kicked out at 17. I was never given the chance to not be independent. I have the courage. It's not easy, definitely, but I am taking action step by step. I have plans to move out of my country. I don't want my parents as a part of my life. I want long distance with them. Also, the country I live in is conservative. So I decided I am not marrying a guy of my country. So way is moving from this country through education and scholarship. I know I am good enough to handle every hardship I am gonna face in another country. I am ready for this. It's on the way, maybe just needed several months more after that I will be move out finally. It's such a peace. My family is rich. They had adopted a baby boy without my consent. From that time they had become abusive towards me, verbally abusive. Also don't care, I live or die, busy with adopted kiddo. So I have come to this state that I don't want them to be a part of my life anymore. It has to had so long distance that they cannot reach me out ESD. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.